Yeah, it's interesting when you see people either say, I'm working till later one day, spend time with my family. Or the other one I love, this old chestnut, is I'm doing it for the kids.
Oh,
I sacrifice this for the family. And I actually rewatched the whole Breaking Bad series recently. Don't ask me why, I got hooked on it in a holiday. And I watched the whole thing, and I watched it differently. And the whole time Walter White is like selling meth and risking his life, and he's always like, I'm doing it for my kids, I'm saving millions of dollars for the kids. And in the very last episode, he said, you're right, honey, I was doing it for me the whole time, for my ego.
Yeah.
So how often do you see that?
All the time.
All the time.
And all I say is, that's cool. Now, are your kids okay with that? And I go, what do you mean? Have you talked to your kids? Have you sat Johnny and Mary down and said, now kids, your dad's not going to be as present as he could be. He won't be at some of your soccer games. And if he is, he'll be on the mobile phone or whatever it happens to be. And I'm not sitting here pointing the finger and judging. I fall into the same trap. I still do this, Brian. My kids still take me on and say, Dad, you're on the phone or whatever. So I'm not here preach. I don't want to be preaching and say I have it all figured out, because I don't. But if you're doing it for your kids, just make sure they know so they have a choice in this thing. But don't assume that they're going to be okay with your choice. And one of the other areas I see this a tremendous amount is where people go, okay, I get it. I've watched enough of Brian's episodes. I get it. I'm not in a career path I want to be in. In fact, I'm miserable. And I'm doing something every day that kills me. But I just don't have the clarity about what's next. And a man put his hand up at an event. I spoke in Vegas with 600 people in the room. He put his hand up. He said, okay, I get it. I don't like what I do. And I said, great. I walked up to him. I looked him straight in the eyes. And I said, so what's the question? He said, well, how do I get the clarity about what's next? Because that's the only thing that I'm missing in order to make a change. I said, okay. Dangerous story, by the way. Dangerous statement. And I looked at him and I said, I'll tell you what the problem is right now. And he says, go for it. And I've never met him before. 600 people, how would I know him? And I said, the pain's not bad enough. And he said, well, number one is I disagree with you. Number two is, how would you know that when you never knew me? We've never met before. I said, I can see it in your face. And I said, I'll prove it to you right now. He said, okay, go for it. And I said, how long have you wanted to get out of this industry that you're in, this job that you hate? 14 years. I said, excuse me? 14 years. I said, excuse me, can you say it louder? He goes, okay, 14 years. I said, exactly. Do you have children? He goes, yeah. I said, give me the name of one of your children. And let's just say he called him John. I said, how old is John? He said, 8. I said, let's fast forward 20 years and John sits down in front of you and says, Daddy, I'm in a job I hate. It's miserable. It's killing me every day. It's annihilating who I am. It's killing my soul. What would you say? I hadn't finished the last syllable. Get out. Get out. Don't do that to yourself. Why would you do that to yourself? Get out now. And then he caught himself and he looked around and he just goes, oh shit. So I said, that's going to be a lecture in 20 years. Or the conversation doesn't even need to happen, because that boy is brought up in a house with an inspirational father that puts value on his own skin and makes a change and doesn't wait. And when you do that, your son will learn from you every single day. And yet that man's justification was a lack of clarity, but also he stays getting a paycheck doing something he hates so he can send his kids to private school.
Now, did your comment give him the clarity? Probably not.
No.
No, because there wasn't enough pain yet.
I think if my memory is correct, I said, with respect, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't think you're going to make a change until the pain is bad enough. I was going to write a book, Brian, called Wake Up Call. And even if I do, no one needs to buy it, because the premise I'll just tell you very quickly. And I've done a lot of research and I've done a lot of interviews with people who've had a wake-up call, meaning a fairly major life thing, whether it's depression, an accident, facing their mortality, somebody close to them dying, whatever. And if they change, sometimes they don't, and I think it's purely down to a value in their own skin. If they just go back to smoking or back to the same lifestyle or whatever, I think it's a value thing. But the ones that do pivot are the ones that do change. If I had to really oversimplify all the research, it sums it up like this. Every one of them simply give themselves permission to do the things they always wanted to do.